Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And for all the female entrepreneurs and all the individuals out there, I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Dr. Wendy O'Connor. And she's an entrepreneur herself, and she is a Stanford trained positive psychologist. She's also a life strategist for women. And we're going to be talking about living a life by design, happiness, fulfillment, using positive psychology to achieve success and happiness. And I'm happy to welcome Dr. Wendy to the show. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this podcast is very informal, so all my friends call me Chris, and I hope I can call you Wendy.
Perfect.
Yeah, so kind of set the stage and talk about your journey and how you come to do the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So I first started out, I think it's now 15 years ago, as a clinical psychologist. I hung my shingles. I had two thriving practices. I helped people with depression and anxiety. It was wonderful, like very fulfilling. It was very successful. It was a wonderful season of my career. But then I had several kiddos very close together, and life changed. So I had three daughters under two. And all of a sudden, everything shifted. My perspective, my values, like my priorities, everything really took a turn. And took this as an opportunity to really get very self reflective. And this period of my life when there is just so much of my energy going out, I made this really important realization that the financial freedom that I had created in my clinical practices wasn't really feeling worth much when I wasn't fulfilled anymore personally as I was doing this work. So as I got to this place of feeling overwhelmed, I felt like I was burning out. I felt like everyone needed my energy and I had something had to give. I started to reflect on my business in particular. And I started to think, you know what? I feel like this season of my life is coming to a close. I feel like all the clinical work that I've done has been so meaningful, and I've loved so much helping so many people recover from anxiety or depression. But what I really felt like I needed personally and I wanted to do professionally was actually help people get to that next level, like thriving level, not just functional, not just surviving life's craziness, but to really learn the science of happiness, how to thrive, how to flourish, so that success meant more than just dollars in your account. So this was a huge shift for me. So I just decided, not on a whim, but really like at this chapter of my life, I was like, that's it. I'm going to shut down my thriving practices. I'm going to take on a new adventure. And that's when I became a coach. And so now I'm in a place where I'm a success coach for female entrepreneurs. I focus on teaching women the science of happiness, but also the science of understanding the success psychology of what it takes to be not only be successful, but to truly be happy. So it was this realization of like, we think we're after financial freedom. Are we just after the financial freedom? Does it actually bring the happiness? And then we get to this place that I see with many entrepreneurs where you may have a lot of sales, you may have a lot of growth in your business, but if you're not happy and you're not fulfilled, like it doesn't feel worth all the work. It doesn't feel worth the effort. So that's where I am now. That's my journey, a little bit about it.
Fantastic. And there's a lot to delve into there. And one thing that really stood out to me during your intro was this idea. So, along various stages, so a lot of people as students and they're in their training and they're practicing, and you were in this stage where you were practicing, you were making good income. And then so along this stage, you're describing self-actualization. And why would somebody in their early, like as a student, they would think, oh man, you're crazy, you gave it all away. And whereas somebody in your place, is like looking for more, searching for more. So kind of describe from the lens of just different stages and how you decided to, because you're looking for more and you have kids and you have family and obligations. So describe that.
Yeah, the more was more like there needed to be some refinement in my strategy. Like there needed to be a shift in my approach because what I had mastered was successful to the naked eye, but it didn't feel how I wanted it to feel anymore from the inside. So it was this desire for more, but more so this desire for like the whole. I wanted the whole experience. I didn't just want to see dollar signs in my account, and oh, that's great. But I wanted to actually wake up every day feeling excited again about my career, feeling full of life, feeling zest. And I knew that if I just kept going on the same track, I would feel more of the same. That wasn't an option for me. Like I've just never been somebody who's going to settle for a life that's like subpar. It just doesn't click. It just doesn't work. So for me, it was this, yes, there was this craving for more, but it was more so like this like full feeling, this fulfilled feeling, this like whole feeling.
Mhm.
And that's why I made this decision to make a shift. And you're absolutely right. So many people were like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Like you've got it made, you've done it, you've like reached the goal of why you went to, 100 years of graduate school and why you pursued all the things you've pursued. You've done it, you've made it. Why isn't this enough?" And it's like, well, just because something sounds right from the outside doesn't actually make it feel aligned on the inside. And we have to trust ourselves to make those decisions and not let other people's judgments or limiting beliefs of their own get in the way of our next steps.
Yeah. Yeah, so many people I talk to, myself included, as students, we're dirt poor, and then we get our first paycheck and it's like awesome, we can buy a house and car, go on these vacations. And after a while, it just gets boring, right? It's like it's just paper and ink and numbers in an account. So, and then what you're searching for is so much more. So I think the younger audience needs to really see that and kind of lean into what you were talking about, this wholeness. And which brings me to my next question, is this idea of especially in this day and age of imposter syndrome, and especially with BIPOC and other groups, and diversity, equity, inclusion, all that. Talk about this idea of imposter syndrome, and it's quite common in the medical professions, and also this idea of perfectionism, and how that tied into what you were trying to achieve.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome is normal. It's everywhere. We all have it. And the higher up in the ranks or up the ladder we go, the more it tends to follow us and pay us a visit along the way. And the way that I work with this with my clients, because my clients are always saying, like, oh my gosh, like I feel like someone's going to find me out. I don't know every single thing I'm supposed to know. I'm creating a business, but I'm just figuring out as I go. How can I master something I don't know yet? And there's this fear around being seen as somebody as unqualified or inexperienced. And really, like my perspective and my belief around this is it's just a normal part of growth. When we feel imposter syndrome, it's because we're doing something outside of our comfort zone. We're doing something that's new to us or new in this particular way. And we just need to allow ourselves to embrace that it's completely normal. But the more that you do the very things that make you feel uncomfortable or this imposter syndrome, the more you're going to master the skill set that it takes to not feel it anymore. Like you get to work your way through that feeling at the more you do the very thing you're uncomfortable doing. And perfectionism is a big one too, obviously, because for entrepreneurs in particular, it really keeps them from making their next moves. So instead of taking messy action, instead of jumping in before you're ready, instead of giving yourself permission to figure it out as you go, perfectionists want all the ducks in a row and everything, all T's crossed and all I's dotted. And it's like they slow down their ability to succeed as quickly as they could if they would just embrace that there is no such thing as perfect. So like, let's just move. So those are two big things that come up all the time. They're so common. But I think the biggest problem around them is that people create a story around them. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. And so because I'm a perfectionist and that's my label, I'm going to do it this way and hold myself back. And I'm going to use it as a reason, but it's really just an excuse. And then we have those with the imposter syndrome that are like, I need to wait until I feel qualified to act. And you're like, you won't until you act. So it's just this idea of when we don't create a story, we don't add suffering. When we don't add suffering, we get back on the highway faster. When we get back on the highway, we create more success, more freedom, more fulfillment, more fun. We have to get out of our heads a little bit here and just get into action, get into taking that aligned action.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially kind of for the audience, when you feel like, you don't belong, or you kind of feel uncomfortable, that's kind of that, these are cues, emotional cues, to lean into that, and stretch yourself and grow, which was what you were talking about. The next question is, especially for the female audience out there, you see the problem as kind of um, what society is teaching and the wrong roadmap? And how do people shun all of that and get on the right one? And how do they do that? What is it?
I love this question so much. I feel like I could talk for days about it, but I'm going to try to be succinct for your audience. The way I see it is that, and this is for everyone, not just women, but we are conditioned to go through life in a very prescribed way. We are taught to do really well in high school, get into a really good college, graduate with honors. We're told to get that really good job, get the apartment, get the partner, get married, get the house, have the kids. There's this prescribed path that we're all conditioned to believe is the right path. But what I saw with my patients and my clients now is that it's almost like the longer you follow this path, there's almost this inevitability that you wake up one day and go, why don't I feel happy? Like I'm doing all the right things. I've killed it. I'm working so hard. I'm doing all the things I was told. Why am I waking up and I'm not lit up by my life? Why am I not happy? Why am I not excited? And maybe even why am I not succeeding? What's the problem? What's wrong with me? And most people will ask, what's wrong with me? Like I must not be getting it. But you're not the problem. This prescribed path is the problem. It doesn't take into account any of your unique strengths, your values, your desires. Anything that's about you is not considered in this particular roadmap. So my work with my clients is all about how do we design your life and your business to support the way you want to feel every day? Because the way we feel every day, or let's say most of the time, is really going to be your perspective of your life, your perception of how your life is. Is it great? Is it amazing? Is it meh? That's going to be based on your emotions. Your emotions are based on what you're thinking. Your thinking is based on how you're living your life. Like, so there's this really beautiful opportunity to make shifts that can just create an incredible ripple effect. But we have to know that we give ourselves permission. We must be able to give ourselves permission to start tuning into ourselves and to say, I thought this was supposed to work. It's not working. Instead of asking me what's wrong with me, I need to ask myself, how do I change the system? How do I change the path? Like, this is not the right path for me. The sooner people give themselves permission to think outside the box, the faster we get to figure out what your unique path is.
Yeah, there's so many gems in there, and it ties back into what we were talking about, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and also this kind of wanting more, and a lot of colleagues, friends, they've got these picture perfect lives, and then they confide to you these secret problems, and you're like, oh, I never would have imagined these, and it's kind of just like we live in like this Disney World fairy tale where everything's supposed to be perfect. So the question is, so you help clients live a life by design and not by default. And what role do strengths and values play in lifestyle design that's both successful and fulfilling?
Yeah, so that's what I call the North Star. Like, this is really creating your North Star. It's like when we identify what your signature strengths are, when we identify what your core values are and your deepest desires are, these are the three pieces that are the foundation of what a life and a business by design looks like. So when people want to start a business or when people want to start a new chapter of their lives, a lot of times what we do is we just look around and see what other people are doing. And we're like, well, she looks happy or they look successful. Like, I'm going to do that. What are you doing? Right? It's like the fitness journey. Someone has a fitness transformation. You're like, oh, what did you do? Tell me all the secrets. Meanwhile, it's like what they did may not at all be the thing that would create success for you or happiness for you. But we immediately turn to other people. We turn to outside sources. And the mistake that we make is to not turn inside, not to look at ourselves and say, hold on a second. I have really incredible natural strengths, talents, gifts inside of me. Are they even being highlighted in my life? So it's a very eye-opening experience as I take clients through this, learning what your strengths are and recognizing that you have these incredible gifts inside of you and the way that you live life, like the way you are meant to live life, is so freeing from the start that people get very excited about, okay, what's next? Like, what about my values? Okay, yes, we identify your core values. What your core values are what matters most to you. What do you think is important? Not what is she doing or what is he doing or how is someone else living their lives, but this is really your unique fingerprint on creating success and fulfillment. So the core is strengths, values, desires. That's the core of the programs that I take my clients through. And it's everything. It sounds so simple and it sounds so obvious. Like, Yes, strengths important, values, yes, important, but they are always overlooked because people don't think it could possibly be that simple to create aligned success. And my very strong belief is it is absolutely that simple.
Yeah, in which kind of talking about positive psychology and action, which is your expertise, and a lot of the audience, they're so socially conditioned that they've got these layers and layers upon layers of just rationalizations, societal expectations, and so this idea of tuning into your North Star, and but a lot of them will struggle because they've got negative self-talk, they've got inner critic. So how do these principles can be applied to overcoming these obstacles and breaking free of the societal conditioning?
Yeah, it so much comes down to rewiring your mindset. It's so much about understanding the stories that have lived within you for so long, that have become so powerful, that have taken the driver's seat away from us. Once you can recognize that these thoughts, these fears, these self-doubts, these stories, once you understand that they're not who you are, they're just something that you've believed for a long time, and you've probably lived your life in line with these stories for a long time, not even like in your awareness. As soon as you start to see that, and building self-awareness is a huge piece of this, when you start to see that, all of a sudden this world opens up a possibility. And it's not an overnight process. So I don't want to say it like, oh, there's this awakening, but there is. And then after this awakening of, oh my gosh, this contrast between how I've lived my life and how I actually want to, when that occurs, then all the work is integrating these tools. So it's a lot of rewiring your mindset, catching yourself, checking your stories, restructuring your thoughts. It's not about like, you don't need the affirmations, you don't need the mantras, you actually don't need them. You can use them for fun if you want to. But what it comes down to is, how are you reacting in your life? How are you responding in your life? And what are the thoughts, beliefs, and stories that are influencing your actions? So we really break it down into these pieces of just how you're showing up in your life in a micro way. Those micro ways are very telling about the overall stories and structures of your beliefs.
Mm.
It reminds me, Chris, of, have you seen yet the Fitness 100 show on Netflix?
No, I have not. What is
There's
that?
this Fitness 100 show. 100 contestants are competing for like the best physique, like strength and endurance and all the things. It's really fun. But one of the pieces of it is that they all have their own cast, like a cast of their torso. And so when you said, how do you apply this? Like, how do you get from this side of the riverbank to the other side for people? I pictured when in this contest, in this competition, if they lose, they have to break the cast. They have to smash their own torso's cast. Okay. So it's emotional for them, of course. But what I picture is that's literally the work that we're doing. It's like we're breaking this like cast that you think the life that you've been living was supposed to be, and you let yourself smash those stories around it so that you can build a new one, so you can create and form a new one. But what a lot of times people do is they protect their cast because it's familiar. It's like the way that they've lived. Their mindset is how it's established for decades now. They protect it because they don't realize that really we need to dissolve a lot of this to create new. They try to bring old cast of their mindset with them, and they wonder why it's not working. And that's why. It's like when we just bring default mindset, our default beliefs, our default thought processes with us into our future selves, we lead ourselves down a path of dead ends very quickly because they're not going to work that way. We have to like dissolve this one as much as we can to build up the new.
Yeah, I love that. And if I'm for some clients, they immediately get it, or they have just some powerful reason why, or some event that kind of it's do or die, and then others take a little bit longer process, which is why we have coaches such as you. So kind of, if rounding it out, if you could suggest one actionable step women could take today to start transforming their lives, what would it be and why? And then how can people find you and follow you and reach out to you?
One actionable step today, I would say, there's so many. I want to just throw 30 your way, but let's start with, and it may not sound actionable, it is actionable. Giving yourself permission to consider an alternative. Giving yourself permission to fully consider the alternative business model, the lifestyle, the career, the relationship, like whatever it is that you're contemplating right now, or that you're realizing as you listen to this conversation, like I'm really not so lit up by this part of my life, or I'm not that happy with this part of my life, or I'm not as successful as I want to be.
Mm,
Giving yourself permission to pursue what you want on the other side
mm,
is the biggest gift you can ever give yourself. You don't need to have the mastery yet. You don't need to have it all figured out yet. You don't need to have the proof of evidence of success yet. You just need to want it, and that's enough of a reason to go for it. So identify the one thing that you're like, I just wish this was better in my life, and take one step in that direction. It doesn't matter if it's writing the email, putting out a post, naming your business, like whatever it is that you want to create in your life, giving yourself that permission is the biggest step that you can take. It's the
mhm.
most important one I take over and over and over and over again. So
Yeah.
that would be my one answer if I had to choose one. And everyone can find me on Instagram primarily at Dr. Wendy O'Connor. Same thing on Facebook. Come say hi, introduce yourself. I love meeting new people. And of course, I can answer any questions about how I serve and what I offer.
Yeah. Fantastic conversation. And I know a lot of your pearls and gems resonated with the audience. And be sure to give Dr. Wendy a like and follow on socials. Check out her website, check out her work, reach out to her. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.